How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new video. So today we're back working on my 2018 Dodge Challenger Hellcat rebuild project, and we're going to get the motor dropped out of this thing so we can continue on the framework. So let's jump right into it and get this drivetrain removed. Guys know we're working on this Challenger here, doing a rebuild on it. It is a salvage project. I'm going to already start getting this motor out. We've off camera gone ahead and drained the coolant. We had the radiator on there just so we can move it around, and I've already drained the oil out of it as well. So we're going to start removing all the stuff that's going to be in our way and need to come out in order to drop this drivetrain. The radiator and everything's going to have to come off. We'll go through and get all the lines disconnected that we need to, and then we'll be able to drop the whole drivetrain as a unit on the subframe, and then we'll remove the engine and transmission from the subframe once it's out of the car and reinstall the subframe back in the car so we can roll it back across the shop and put it on the frame machine. So first things first, I'm going to start removing all the stuff on the front here, and then we're going to see what we need to do to figure out the easiest way to drop all the suspension and everything as a unit. Probably just unbolt the tops of the shocks and the upper control arms here, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to set up a time lapse and start tearing this thing apart. got everything set that we need to. We've got everything taken apart and unplugged that should allow us to drop this drivetrain out. I've got a couple dollies set up here with wood so I can get that lined up and get this thing set down safely. Getting these out is pretty simple. There's 4 18mm bolts on the front subframe. One here in the back above the sway bar, both sides, and one right here in the front. I've gone ahead and disconnected the knuckle from the upper control arm, and I've also disconnected the strut top from the tower. All brake lines, ABS sensors, adaptive shock wires, and everything I've disconnected. They can stay with the suspension when it drops down. They've got a little bracket that keeps them all together. Gonna make sure that those don't get damaged. Moving on to the transmission crossmember back here, there's 4 13mm bolts. You guys already saw I've removed the drive shaft, and I have enough height of wood that I can place the crossmember on the dollies without damaging the exhaust, so the exhaust won't actually touch the dolly when it's on the ground. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those removed. Just gonna basically drop the car down to the ground and reach up under it and remove those 8 bolts that we talked about. Here's the other side, same position, 18mm bolt there and 18mm bolt there. The only thing that I don't know is if there's anything that's on top of the transmission that's going to be a problem as far as wiring or whatnot. I would hope not, but I will find out when I start raising the body of the vehicle. I should be able to see down the top of the tunnel past the firewall to be able to view the top of the transmission and see if there's anything connected up there, and hopefully be able to reach in and disconnect it. So I'm going to set it up on another time lapse, and we're going to get this drivetrain, subframe, and everything here removed from the Hellcat. Got the Challenger strapped back up on the frame machine. It's all clamped down, ready to start some initial pulls on these rails. I did a couple test pulls on this rail. You can see it's straightened out a little bit more than this one is over here. The problem I'm running into is I don't want to be moving this whole tower when I pull, so I'm going to see if I can reinforce the pull with an opposite pull to another tower. But to do that, I need to grab an area near the main bend that I need to pull out, and my access is being blocked by this front wheelhouse panel here, and this is the case on both sides. This side's going to be easier to show you what I plan to do. I want to remove this panel because I can replace it easily after, so I can get in here and run another chain or a strap around the straight portion of the rail and tie it off to the other pulling tower. That'll hold the rail from wanting to move in the passenger side direction anywhere that I don't need it to. So I'll be able to focus the twisting of the pull kind of along this point where the bend in the rail is, and see if we can get it worked out. So right now I'm going to start by getting all the stuff that's in my way out of the way. I'm going to remove this whole brake line and AC line bundle that runs over here. I'm going to remove the ABS pump and module, get the fuse box out of the way, kind of strip back all the wiring that I can so I have as good of access as any. to be able to get in here and drill out these spot welds, remove these 2 panels, and then I'll be able to set up, you know, the pulling setup that I had prior mentioned, and see if we can get this rail. This is going to be the real kind of brutal one to get pulled out. This one's going to take some time. We have 2 compound bends here. I'm going to see if I can get this one to come out and this one to come out. I may have to pull straight forward toward the front of the vehicle as well to get that one to come out, but I'm going to see if I can get this to rotate around the subframe mount point here, get this somewhat straightened out. And this one should be a little bit easier because it's not as kinked in multiple places. We only have 1 bend to deal with over here. So I'm gonna get all that stuff done, and then we'll see how the pulls go, get everything started. Hopefully this comes out. If these come out good with cold straightening, we may be able to avoid changing out the rails. I don't know yet, but per FCA's procedure, we cannot use heat on these frame rails. Only cold straightening is allowed to repair damage like this. If it comes out, great. If it doesn't, then we're going to have to figure out, you know, changing the rails as I had previously stated. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all stripped down, and then we'll see if we can get them pulled. So guys, put some time into the front end on the Challenger here today. As you can see, the driver's side rail, I was able to get basically as straight as possible. There is still a kink at the joint back here. It is still torn at the compression zone there where it's supposed to collapse in the collision. Obviously that's going to get changed. Can't possibly have that. I mean, it would never stand up in a collision. You can move this rail pretty easily by hand. I know it doesn't have any reinforcement or anything up at that point, but still, you shouldn't be able to grab that and move that. That would never hold up in a crash. This rail is still proving to be kind of a pain where we got 2 bends going on there. I'm gonna have to see if I can brace it forward a little bit more. See if I can get the tip of this just worked over just for dimensioning purposes, getting as much of this pulled out as we can. Once I get everything straight, I think the plan is to change out this outer rail section back at the joint where it is welded in from the factory. I can replicate that with the resistance spot welder, the squeeze type spot welder, and on high strength steel we can get that put back in, and then we'll be able to get these rails back to the way they should be. Obviously we'll get new piece on the inside, new piece on the outside, and I'll have to buy strut towers and put in this front closeout wheelhouse that I had taken out. I don't want to reuse the original ones. They are both torn from the accident. This one that supports the airbox is torn over here, and this one is torn on the front side right here at the bottom. So I don't want to be reusing any of that. We'll be getting new parts for that. So more work to do here. I am gonna get the frame rails ordered so I can start working on getting the new pieces put in here. And once I get all that put in, we'll be able to paint the engine bay and get the engine installed. So I'll pick up, once I get parts, we should be able to get everything starting to look back like a normal car. I did do some measuring here on the front end. The tram bar is evident of that. Wanted to check the subframe to make sure it was not bent. The subframe measures out perfectly to the millimeter on spec. There is no damage to the subframe. I was concerned about it, but I'm now able to prove out that it is good and we don't have to replace it. The second thing I'm super happy about is the fender aprons on both sides. Those measure out exactly to the millimeter. There is no issue there, swayed in, swayed out, and the strut towers also measure out exactly on spec. All the stuff that's behind the evident visual damage areas is all good. Just wanted to double check. It's, you know, never hurts to do a little extra measurement here. I did also go ahead and straighten out this fender apron here. This was pushed back and twisted in a bit, so we've got that all straight, and we've got the kink damage worked out of the side here. You can see right here is where it was kinked. We've got that all straightened out, pulled it forward this way, and we were able to take the front end with one of the adapters for the machine and get this rotated back the way it's supposed to be. So now the measurement point is from right here on both sides. Both sides measure out perfectly, so I'm super happy about that. So for now, I'm gonna take a pause here, wait for some parts to come in, and then we will pick back up on this thing once we have parts to fix these rails. Alrighty guys, so I got one of these wheelhouses in already off of camera. I did have to plug weld the top and the side. I was able to spot weld the bottom back in the way they do at the factory. There's really no way to get access to this area and this area because it looks like the way they build this is by putting this piece in on the inside of the apron first, and then they spot weld it on the inside, and then they spot weld the outer apron to the inner apron after. And I'm not going to be taking that off just to spot weld that. If you replace these, there is a special procedure you have to do to realign the hood hinges, and I don't want to get involved in that. Now it's time to get over here on this side. I've got this test fitted already. Everything's measured up, everything lines up nicely, and I'm gonna go ahead and start welding this one, get this all set, and then we will go ahead and finish up the last little bits of seam sealer to replicate the way they do it from the factory. On the tips of the old rails, there is a little chunk of seam sealer they put on right about here on both sides. I'm going to replicate that, and then I do want to seam seal any little gaps, on the strut tower from these being welded in. Want to make sure that all that's sealed on both sides, on the underside of the strut tower and along the top. So we'll go ahead and do that. I am going to start the same way I did over here with the upper apron section. It is panel bonded from the factory. I am going to go back and put a bead of panel bond in this section as well, and then clamp it, weld it, and then the back side is not panel bonded, it is simply welded. So we'll get that done, and then we'll get the spot welder going again and spot weld the bottom on there. So I'm going to get jumping on that, get the panel bond laid down, and once this is done, I will do the finishing touches on this front end, and then we'll start laying down some epoxy primer and getting it ready to actually go ahead and paint the engine bay so it's ready for the engine to go back in. But that's the next steps that we're going to do, go through all that, and then once we're ready to start laying down some primer, we'll pick back up and continue on with the process here. So we got all the welding done, the joints are seam sealed, everything is all set and prepped. I've scuffed the surfaces on both frame rails, both strut towers. We are ready to spray down some epoxy primer. I've got it mixed already, so I'm going to get this sprayed in. We're going to do just a primer and hardener mix on the outside here for a stronger bite. Anywhere outside where we're going to have contact from rocks or the road surface or anything out here, we want to be extra strong. So we're going to mix it a little bit differently to do two different areas. We're going to do a stronger mix outside, and then we'll come back and we'll reduce it for a better lay down on the inside. We'll add a little reducer into the mix in order to get it laid down flatter like a sealer, and then we'll be able to spray the Destroyer Gray color and clear over it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all sprayed in, and we'll check back when it's all ready. That is going to wrap up today's video. We got a ton accomplished on the Hellcat. We got the whole front end put back together. All the new frame pieces are installed and everything looks great. Be sure to tune in to the next video because that's where we're going to be reinstalling the engine and transmission into the car and getting it running and driving under its own power once again. If you guys like this video, know a friend that might, or you want to follow along with the additional parts of this project still to come, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with a friend if you know they'll find it interesting as well. As always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for following along with all my projects, and as always, have an awesome day.